Welcome back to Go and Preach. Come along with us as we jump right in where we left off last time and continue on the same subject. Because I was sitting in a biology class and my teacher was explaining that there are certain creatures. I'll use the snake for an example. They have this thing called a snake that has legs, and they have a lizard that has no legs. And they used to say that the lizard with no legs is somehow a descendant of the snake. And so for years and years they believed this, but once they began to study the DNA evidence, they realized that they're very different. So then instead of coming up with the most simple explanation that maybe they were just created differently, maybe an intelligent being just had a different design for many different varieties of species. Instead of that explanation, they decided that sometime in the past, snakes developed legs, and then over a series of time, they lost their legs, and then over a series of more time, they redeveloped them again. So they had the features, and they lost the features, and then they regained the features again. And you'll see this again and again in science classes. They teach that they had the thing, and then they lost the thing, and then they gained it again. It's just crazy. It sounds like a fairy tale. Now, I should have said this when I started. I am not a scientist, and I am not going to go deep into all the big words that they use and try to explain everything the way that they do, but I simply want to point out to you that there are very major flaws in these theories of evolution. So, number one, big flaw, they have a presupposition that the supernatural is not possible. Okay, without even observing any evidence, they've already ruled that out as an option. Secondly, I've already mentioned this, there is absolutely no evidence of any transitional forms, the in-betweens. If you've ever studied biology, they introduced you to the idea of the phylogenetic tree. Basically, what this thing is a phylogenetic tree is a list of branches. It looks kind of like a way we used to diagram sentences when we were kids. But it is supposed to show the evolutionary relationship for different species, different creatures, and how they go back to common ancestors. Now, if you look at the phylogenetic tree, and I wish I brought one with me, but I didn't, you'll see that there's a lot of blanks on the phylogenetic tree. They have all these common ancestors, but they haven't discovered the common ancestor yet. Now, I don't know about you, but that makes me scratch my head. Why are you teaching something to me that you believe if you don't have any evidence for it yet? Well, again, it goes back to something I said earlier. They want to use their authority and their credentials to ram something down your throat. They're forcing you, they want to force you to believe something that in reality there is no evidence for. If evolution was true, macroevolution was true, and still taking place today, we would have some of these in-betweens still living and walking among us. We still have apes, and we still have humans. So where are the in-betweens? We still have reptiles, and we still have birds. Where are the in-betweens? Well, some may say, well, they're extinct. Well, we have bones of dinosaurs. We can find them. We know that they existed. Where are the bones of the in-betweens? And so far, every presentation of what they would call the missing link has been debunked and proven to be a myth. Amen. I have to divide this one. Another point I want to make is pure science cannot deal with something that cannot be observed or tested. The mere fact that evolution presumably occurred over millions and billions of years is a sign to us that there is no way to test this theory, since no one has ever lived long enough to observe it or test it. Therefore, by definition, evolution cannot even be considered as science. So when your neighbor hangs a sign in their yard that says, "We believe in science," I say, well, so do I. I believe in science too. I just don't buy into each individual scientist's interpretation of the evidence. See, evidence doesn't talk. Did you know that? Evidence doesn't say anything. Evidence has to be interpreted. And we all interpret evidence through a filter. And I'm calling that filter our worldview. See, evolution is not science. Evolution is a worldview. It is a doctrine of demons, whereby everything that you observe in the world must be explained through only materialistic means. Supernatural is not one of the possibilities. And that just simply goes against the evidence. Interesting, in science class, recently I learned that in order to have a good hypothesis about something, for those of you who don't remember, a hypothesis is an educated guess or a reasonable explanation for something that you've observed, some evidence that you've observed. But in order to have a good hypothesis, it must be falsifiable. In other words, you must have a way that you can test your hypothesis and prove it to be false. Okay? If you can't prove it to be false, it does not automatically make it true. It means that you have to reevaluate and redesign a new test. And as something passes many tests as not being false, then slowly but slowly it can become what is called a theory, which is a widely accepted thing. Now, the irony is that evolution, by definition, cannot be falsifiable. It can't be observed. There's no way to test it. There's no way to observe it. And the fact that we have graduated it to become a theory in science also speaks to the fact that there's more at work here. There's more at play than we understand. You see, it's not just a battle of evolution. It's not a battle of the mind. It's not a battle of what evidence is actually available. But these theorists, these evolutionists, way back at the beginning, they had an agenda. They have an agenda. Amen. Now, I'm going to stop right there, and we'll come back next time. We'll pick right up where we left off. We'll continue talking about evolution right here on Go and Preach.